Everybody, I'm Mika.
I'm Serenity,
and this is When World History Entertainment News. Today our topic is about nuclear weapons. Now Serenity, what exactly are nuclear weapons?
Good question, Mika. Nuclear weapons are bombs or missiles that use nuclear energy to cause an explosion.
Wow, I never knew that. I wonder how it works.
Nuclear weapons are made out of plutonium, an extremely radioactive substance. When a nuclear bomb is detonated, a controlled chain reaction occurs and things are annihilated.
Wow. Serenity, you really dropped a bomb on me with that description.
Mika, no, stop.
You dropped the bomb on me.
Teyam, would you please explain to us how nuclear weapons work in more detail?
Serenity. There are two types of nuclear weapons, fission weapons and fusion weapons. Nuclear fission weapons are made by breaking apart an atom, and nuclear fusion weapons are used by fusing two small atoms. Both these release energy really fast. However, it is fission bombs that is the reason behind the destruction of Japan's Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nuclear weapons use radioactive elements because they are unstable and thus have a lot of energy. Nuclear weapons were first created by the United States of America because they thought the Nazis were creating nuclear weapons in World War II. These weapons of mass destruction required radioactive elements to be purified. After World War II, the Cold War began, which was a race between the United States of America and the Soviet Union. Many nuclear weapons were created and tested for the chance of a nuclear war. Each country threatened each other. If they attacked first, they would respond with a greater force. In the end, both countries agreed to limit the production of nuclear weapons and the number of tests. Even with these treaties, other countries began to create nuclear weapons to feel more secure and have more power. There are currently 9 countries with nuclear weapons, and it is suspected that more countries are producing them. This production of nuclear weapons, although it provides some security, comes with a cost.
And yes, as Teyam mentioned, it is very costly to produce nuclear weapons. Over the course of 56 years, the United States spent about $5.8 trillion on nuclear weapons.
To give a bit of perspective, if $5.8 trillion was divided equally among everyone in the United States, everyone would get a little more than $21,000. And there are over 300 million people living in the United States.
There is a lot one could do with the chunk of money that large. But putting literal costs aside, they also take a toll on the land.
There is initial damage from the explosion, which is the complete desolation of buildings and nature. Basically, all that is left is a crater devoid of life.
Then there is the after effect of the bomb, the nuclear fallout. Nuclear fallout, also known as black rain, is the residential radioactive material that falls out of the sky after being propelled upward by the explosion.
There are 2 types of fallout, early and delayed. Early nuclear fallout reaches the ground within 24 hours. This fallout has heavy particles which are highly radioactive and can kill or severely injure living things.
So, even after being in a devastating explosion, there is still more that will come down to kill you?
Yeah. Then there's delayed fallout. Just as the name suggests, the fallout is delayed. In other words, fallout reaches the ground from 24 hours to a number of years after the explosion. It consists of tiny, often invisible particles that may fall in small amounts over large areas. Such fallout causes long-term radiation damage to living things.
Wow, that does not seem too good. Let's go to Molly, who was with someone who has recently been in a nuclear explosion.
Again, Serenity, I am at the scene of the explosion. I will be interviewing Oliver, who has survived the nuclear explosion and is here with me.
Hi, I'm Oliver, and I would just like to say it was the scariest moment of my life.
Tell me about the experience itself. What was the first thought on your mind?
At first, I thought it was a very big earthquake. Then I saw the mushroom cloud and the order to seal all airways came over the radio, and I finally realized.
So what did you do after the government alert?
My family and I began closing the windows and doors, stuffing blankets and pillows in the air vents, duct taping the cracks. We didn't realize at the time that it meant that we could either die from lack of oxygen or radiation.
If only it was possible to outlast the radiation and then open the windows, but radiation can last for centuries.
Eventually, we had to open the windows, and the radiation came on strong. I could feel it, smell it in the air. I had no way to describe the feeling. It felt like something died that day. The visual effect took longer to the surface. First our hair turned white, so we had to dye it. Slowly our bodies began to cripple and break down.
This whole time, you stayed at home?
Yes, there was nowhere else to go. The effects would have happened anyway after the first exposure. But then our town was within the unsurvivable area, and the people slowly began to die off until I was the only one left.
And you couldn't and you couldn't leave because the amount of radiation in your body would cause anyone near you to die.
By this time, the sky was completely covered with radiation, and I had run out of canned food in the house and had to leave it in order to keep from starvation. I knew the more I ate from the area, the more radiation poisoning I would get. But when you are starving, all logical thoughts leave the brain, and all you have left is that part of you.
You must have been horribly lonely, and I can't even imagine the situation.
Go.
We get what we get in life, and we cannot complain because God is always too busy and doesn't have a survey to see if you are enjoying life. I have learned to be happy that I can survive and try not to think of other things. Sometimes I walk to the edge of the crater and look down and wonder why I am the only one still alive and suffering while everyone else sleeps in peace.
Thank you for your deep insight into the life of after a nuclear explosion is like. I hope whoever sent the bomb is watching this and realizes how many lives are ruined, how much suffering they have caused. And now we go on to Mika and Serenity for more information upon this topic.
Molly and Oliver for that touching story.
Being in an area with radiation does not seem good at all.
It is not. Effects on radiation can be seen by effects on our bodies, especially areas where cells reproduce constantly. In an area with radiation, hair is lost quickly and in clumps.
Oh, but I like my hair.
But there is more. Even brain cells, which do not reproduce, can have nerve cells and small blood vessels killed, caused seizures and immediate deaths.
Oh, whew, no worries for me since I don't have a brain.
The thyroid gland that is found in your throat can be destroyed by radioactive iodine.
No, radioactive poisoning.
All jokes aside, a person's blood cell can also drop due to exposure.
Radioactive poisoning can weaken the immune system, which can make you sick more often.
That is correct. The most intense exposure does damage to blood vessels, which can lead to heart failures and immediate death.
Radiation can also damage the gastrointestinal tract, which causes nausea and internal bleeding.
And finally, radiation damages cells that reproduce rapidly, including blood, GI tract, reproductive, and hair cells. This means that some victims with long-term damage can become sterile, which means they can no longer produce babies.
Thank you for watching, everyone. This has been When? World History Entertainment News. We'll see you next time.